Hey, this is John with FixYourDirtBike.com, and I'm about to start putting the new suspension in my KTM here. The rear is going to be a 8.2 rate, and the front is going to be 0.64 because I am a giant. First things first, remove the handlebars, but you already know how to do that, so let's get to it. Okay, first things first, I am working in a storage unit, so I don't have access to luxuries of, say, a vise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this fork cap before I take it out of the triple tree. Now this is a WP open chamber, so I do need a special tool. If you are really creative, you can probably make one of these out of, well, I don't know, I don't have a welder, so I'm not going to try. This was like 25 bucks from Enduro Engineering. I mean, it just fits right on. Take your breaker bar, there you go. Now, quick thing, undo the top two pinch bolts, because that actually does pinch this pretty tight. If you try to keep wrenching it with the pinch bolts tight, you're just going to hurt yourself, knock the bike over. It's just not going to be easy. But do keep the bottom ones tight, because those are acting as a vise. And there's no handlebars, so I have no leverage. So I'm just going to put the triple trees at full lock and just loosen her up. Now, it's loose. I'm going to leave it like this. Now I'm going to take it off and actually service it at the bench. So you loosen the cap on the trees. Now before you take it off at the bench, make sure to back out the rebound and compression all the way. That way you don't mess up anything on the internals. Alrighty, there you are. Okay, now that you've dropped the tube, you just got to get the retaining nut off of the fork. And the easiest way to do that, well, the only way to do that, pull the fork down to expose this lock nut and put something on it. I don't have a box wrench that'll fit this right now because I am working out of a storage unit. So that's that. This fits though. Fit over the top. I did pre-loosen this. It doesn't come off that easy, actually. Right. That. Now I do want to save all the oil I can, because I am not doing a complete rebuild. I'm just swapping springs. I don't want to waste any oil. Okay, now it's time to see if the new spring fits. And the wire they use to coil the spring is way thicker than stock, so I don't think it'll be within tolerances for the spring guide. And it's not. So all this means is a 10-minute job turned into a half-hour to 45-minute job, because now I have to either sand or grind down these flutes. And, well, there's no easy way to do it except to just do it, so here's how you do it. So now, because I have to shave down these flutes, we have to take the fork apart. But I don't want to take it apart all the way, so I'm going to try to be sneaky. Basically, all I have to worry about is getting the oil out of here and then protecting the internals while I'm grinding and sanding. So I guess we'll just start by dumping the oil. Get that pressure rod out of there. And as you're draining, you're going to want to pump the cartridge a few times just to get all the fluid out of there. There we are. Now it's almost impossible to get all the oil out of here, so I'm just going to get as absolutely much as I can, because when I'm sanding and grinding, I don't want that all over the place. Okay, now that I'm ready to start sanding these flutes, I have to prep the tube so it doesn't get shavings on the inside, because that's just a bunch of junk that you don't need to put on the inside of your fork. Now I can't tape things to the rod, to the fork, to the tube, it's because it's covered in oil. So what I'm going to do, a little toilet paper, or take a roll of paper towel here. While you're doing this, make sure you keep the cartridge rod all the way up. I'll show you why in a minute. So the rod's up. I'm going to get that nice and tight right there. Actually, you know what? You can throw some tape on there to keep that tight. Okay, so I have taped the paper towel to the rod. Not actually taped it to the rod, I just bound it with tape. So it's on the rod underneath the spring guide, but above the tube. So when I push down, there we are. So the paper towel is not, it's not all the way in, it's not touching stuff, it's not going to get gummed up, but it does form a pretty decent seal and keeps this relatively in place. I am going to throw a little more tape on the top just to kind of bind it together, and then we can actually start sanding. So it's basically you want to take about 1 millimeter off of each flute, and there's 4 flutes. Now the easiest way to do this, without a grinder that is take some 40 grit sandpaper and then work your way up, all the way up to 600 grit emery paper. Because you want this to be absolutely smooth as possible, because that spring is riding up and down on this guide. Now to keep your edges flat, again I'll take my fork compression rod holder. Have a flat edge. And just go to work. Now while you're doing this, get some pressure behind it, because you need to take off a big chunk of plastic, and all you have is sandpaper. Again, if you don't have a grinder, sandpaper will work just fine. Just put some pressure on it. But don't be ridiculous, obviously. You don't want to bend this internal rod, which, I mean, it's pretty sturdy, but just be careful. Now, the easiest way to keep it uniform is just count 10. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, and just turn, 10, turn, 10, turn. And just keep going and going and going and going. And then grab your spring, see if it fits, and then just keep going and going. And then once it does fit, take your really fine emery cloth and then just smooth it all down. And make sure you get all the garbage out of there, to all the shavings and out of there before you bundle things up, because again, you don't want shavings in your internals. One more thing you want to do before you start sanding is you want to make sure that the compression rod hole is sealed. And again, the easiest way to do that is with a paper towel. Okay, now that you will kind of have to keep an eye on this, because you can't tape it directly to the rod, because again it is pretty oily. But just kind of keep an eye on it and do what you can to secure it, because there's no real easy way. Right now it's on there pretty good. I tightened it down pretty good. But just keep an eye on that when you're sanding. Okay. And there we go. Now I don't have one of those oil level Saturn syringe things. So I'm just going to go by what the book says, and the book says 325 milliliters, and which is 21.13 ounces. Well, I'm going to go 21 ounces because I can't eyeball 0.13, and I want the shock just a little softer. Now in filling the oil, you make sure you do not get fluid in this hole, because that'll just mess things up with the compression and your clickers won't work right, and it's just bad news. And the easiest way to avoid that is to just remove the problem. By holding it up, I mean. And work the rod up and down to draw the oil in the compression cylinder. And keep doing this until you don't hear any bubbles, and it's a nice even draw all the way up and down. All I just did there is I just put my hand, sealed the tube with my hand, and pushed down as hard as I could to get that fluid to get all the way seated. And there's just a little bit of residual, but it's not going to go down that far anyway. So there we go. Okay. Okay, now it's time to put the new spring on. Easiest way to do that is just do it. Now, do not drop this spring in here. It will splash all over the place. All right. And the cap goes on the same way it came off. Now, something you want to make sure is, after you put your compressor rod in, make sure the spindle is all the way out, like all the way backed out. That way when you put your cap on, it will be seated correctly and your clickers will actually click, not just spin. And there we go. That's how you change your forks. Now, fork springs. Now just do that twice. Now, if your rate is low enough, you probably won't have to do the whole sanding down thing, which will save you quite a bit of time, but that is really easy. And without disassembling the entire thing, you're not gonna mess much up if you do mess anything up. Just remember that spindle, remember that to back these out before you take the cap off, and that's about it. Okay, so this one has been swapped with the new rate. This is the stock one with the same rate, haven't touched it yet. Both the rebound and compression settings are the same. So when I just put some weight on them, this one, you can see how bounced down it is compared to this one. So already you can tell that it's a lot stiffer spring just by messing with it. When you go to put the forks back in, make sure everything is uniform. Make sure the fork is the same level above the triple tree as the other fork. Make sure both forks rebound and compression adjustments are all the same. Then you want to tighten the bottom triple clamp first, then tighten the cap, and then tighten the top triple clamp. Now, setting the levels on your fork is easy when you just use the grooves on the cap. There we go, the second groove. Also make sure your bleeder is accessible without taking the handlebars off. Usually towards the back. All right. Now, don't over tighten these, just get them nice and snug, because you will have to torque these down later to the proper spec. But for now, they just gotta hold this. There we go. And that's all it really needs. It doesn't need to be really cranked on there, just tight. When torquing these down, make sure you have the right torque, the top and the bottom. The top is 14.1 or 20 Newton meters, and the bottom is 11.1 foot-pounds or like 15 Newton meters. So right now I have it set for 14.8, as close as I can get to the top. Now as you go to torque, you have to just jump back and forth between the two until they're both uniform. Alright, so that's that. Again, the bottom I'm going to reset for 11. Technically 11.1. So I'm going to get as close as I can to that with my $30 torque wrench from AutoZone. Now, 14 and 11 doesn't sound like a whole lot, but they are meant to pinch, not clamp. Just remember that. So there you go. That's how you change your springs on the WP open chamber fork. They are pretty similar across all years. This is a 2014 model, so if anything's different, I didn't see it. The only thing you need special is the fork cap tool. Other than that, as you saw, I just use wrenches, pliers, tape, stuff like that. Now, if you don't have to shave down your fork guides, this will be a lot faster than what it took me. All told, it took me about 45 minutes a side. For you, if you don't need to shave those down, it'll probably be about 15. So make sure to check back for the rear suspension, and make sure to like and subscribe for more videos of this bike and other bikes and just general dirt bike stuff. See you next time.